folks, and welcome to the next part of my top 100. Yes, I've already begun recording and submitting videos for this. You may have already seen the 100 to 91 that's gone up, and if not, I suggest you go back and watch it, because otherwise you're kind of jumping in a bit too early, too late, whatever. Go back and watch that first, then come back here. That'd be good. So this is continuing my, my stance on this. These are my 100 favourite games taken from a batch of several hundred, cut down to 150, and then eventually whittled down into a top 100. I'll go into what fell off the list and what ones didn't quite make the 100 in a later video, but for now we're just concentrating on this list. So you've already seen classics like Pandemic Iberia and Splendor and Nations and Mystic Vale and all sorts of others turn up in the first 10. So what's in this next set of 10? This is my 90 to 81. So, esteemed viewers will have already noticed that, as I said, 28 new games have appeared on this list, and we've already had 7 of them appear in the recent top 10. Here's another new debut, and that is Potion Explosion. Potion Explosion is basically Candy Crush the board game. It's essentially the best way to put it. You have a big sort of apparatus where you put these coloured little marbles in, they drop down, and you're effectively trying to get them in, sets. So you're trying to combine all the similar colours together, and in doing so you collect them and you use them as ingredients to fill up your potions. As you get your potions, they trigger off special abilities when you drink them, but they still count for points at the end of the game. Very simple premise. There's a lot of cool abilities to use. Some people can AP on this a bit, so you have to watch who you play it with, because you're sort of there going, if I can do that combo, maybe if I take this marble out, it'll trigger this effect or whatever. If you just play this as a nice light game with 2 to 3 players, I think you're with a home run. I wouldn't want to play this with 4 too many, and I hear there's going to be a 5th player in the expansion maybe. If so, no, don't want to do that. Nope, just 2 to 3 players, and this is a solid little game. I really enjoy it. It's colourful. It's vibrant, and it takes one of the most popular Facebook games that have ever existed and translates it into a board game. And the app for this is fantastic as well. So if you want to try before you buy, then try the app out and see how you feel. But I think you get your money's worth in this box. Great fun. Again, gateway level game, I would say. Once they get past the way the potions work, I'd say that people know how to do Candy Crush. People know how to do that mechanic pretty simply. So I recommend Potion Explosion. My number 90. My number 89 has risen 7 places from last year. It's staying pretty steady at the lower end of the list, but I still enjoy this one a lot, no matter how many expansions they bring out for it. And it is one of the evergreen staple gateway games that has to be in everyone's collection. If you want to introduce people to Euro-style mechanics, especially tile laying, this is one of the perfect ones to do it, and that is the evergreen Carcassonne, which has a few expansions in there, not too many, but I've taken the best ones and a couple of ones I've recently reviewed. The Under the Big Top one, for example, go watch my review. But, this one has got a nice little insert in it to hold it all. But, oh yeah, this is great fun still. I still enjoy this one. You can see this is the, I think the 2nd edition. Not when it was originally released, but when it got reprinted. It's still the old style artwork. And I personally prefer it to the new 2015 remade version, but if you're buying it for the first time, I think that's the only one you can get these days, unless you find this one, say, on a bring and buy sale. But I still really get a kick out of this one. So simple. Here's a tile, lay it down, put a meeple on the board, and then you just watch that map build out. This was one of the first games I remember playing when I got into the hobby, and it just blew my mind. It's like, where's the board? What, you build the board as you play? It was such a revelation for me to see that. And it's still so simple. Still gateway level. If you just play base Carcassonne, anybody could learn this. And then as you get better at it, you just add in the new mechanics, like from the expansion, slowly but surely. Personally, I like to all shove it. Well, I like to combine maybe 1 or 2 at a time. I don't like to go too mad, because then it just gets too long. But, throwing in 1 expansion at a time, maybe 2, and you're in with a good shout, but then maybe you can't find this one and you want to try one of those spin-offs that have come out, the various versions of Carcassonne, in which case I hardly recommend South Seas as my personal favourite, but Gold Rush is fine and so is Star Wars, so you can try out all the different ones. And oh yes, Amazonas is alright as well. Personally, I think South Seas is the best of those, but yeah, I still get a kick out of the original, the quintessential staple Euro gateway game, Carcassonne. Okay, but number 88 is one that was on the list before, and these last ones are really tiring me out because I'm having to go all the way down there in all the furthest corner at the very bottom to pull out these games that I've just been talking to you about. But this one has fallen a little bit. It's fallen 25 places. Nothing too strenuous. It's just, like I say, it hasn't hit the table much recently, but I still really enjoy this. This is probably one of the staple worker placement gateway games that you should consider, and that is Lords of Waterdeep. Yes, it's a little heavier at the moment because, one, I've got a cool insert for it, but also because it has the Scoundrels of Skullport expansion in it. And if you want to play this with like gateway gamers on a regular basis, then the base game will do you fine. But with gamers, I love the Scoundrels of Skullport expansion, and this is why this still remains on my top 100. I enjoy the game a lot, but it is quite a simple worker placement game, and the theme is, for the most part, pretty pasted on, regardless of whether you get little meeples or not. But the Scoundrels of Skullport expansion really elevates this because it introduces not only more spaces to go to, more quests, more of the good stuff, but it has that corruption mechanic that I really like. The corruption mechanic is where you can get really powerful effects off these cards, but in doing so you collect these corruption tokens, and each one's worth negative points, and that point value goes up the more corruption that is taken. So you have to think, well, at some point, am I just going to harvest corruption and just try and get a ton of points with it and take the hit? Or am I going to try and get rid of that corruption later on, but use it now? It's like a nice, cool mechanism to do, but like I say, very streamlined, very easy to teach, very easy to play. You get buildings, you get special abilities, you get all the different quest objectives and rewards. It's very colourful, it's very striking on the table. I really like it. Some people have kind of forgotten that this one exists, I think, lately. It doesn't pop up in a lot of conversations or a lot of gaming circles, but I still think that if you've got this game or if you want to try it out, get in contact with me. Come down to a Portsmouth or Southampton gaming group day, or Petersfield one even, and I would certainly like to play this one and show it to you at some point. So my number 88 is Lords of Waterdeep. My number 87 is a game that I've literally just pulled off the shelf directly behind me, hence I'm sitting at this weird angle so that hopefully you can't tell exactly which one it was. Or maybe I'm playing a little memory game. Can you remember what was on the shelf behind me? Probably not, because you're probably distracted at this point. But my number 87 is a great game from Bezier Games, and that is the Castles of Mad King Ludwig, or whatever way you pronounce it. Castles of Mad King Ludwig is a tile laying game again, in which you are building a castle. The castle takes all sorts of manner and shapes, and I do get a kick out of these games where you build the map in front of you, because I'm always like, if the game has an arc where you start off with something small and then you build up to something, so like a building map in Carcassonne, building the castle in this, building up your list of resources or whatever in front of you, civilization building, that kind of thing. I like it where it has an arc, and this one has a similar thing. But it all looks cool. The mechanics are really good. There's good variation, even with the expansion, with the moats. That is a solid expansion as well. Secrets, I think it was cool. But I always like that master builder thing of having to price up the various parts of the castle so that it's cheap enough for you to get, but you don't want to make it too cheap for the opponents. You get to have jokes about how your castle's turned up. Everybody has very different castles at the end, and it's just a very neat system. It is a little bit of a fiddly setup, even with an insert, because you've got to have all the different tiles and all the different cards and all that, so it can get a little fiddly at times unless you're really used to this and play it a lot, but no, I get a kick out of this. And last year I think it's fallen a fair bit though, 37 places. Last year I had this and Suburbia neck and neck. Did Suburbia fall off the list? You'll have to wait and see. But, you know, last year they were neck and neck. This year I've made more of a decision as to which one I prefer of the two. You'll just have to wait and see to see whether Suburbia still made the list or whether this one is my continued preference. My number 86, and again, I had to find it in that bottom corner over there. And it's a heavy one as well. Why can't the heavy ones be right behind me so it's easier to pull off the shelf? I don't know, games are just getting huge these days with too many components, too much like huge stuff in the box. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but makes it painful to take off the shelf. And this one is no exception. It is a Feast for Odin. I'm quite a bit of a fan of Uwe Rosenberg's designs. Not every single one, you know, I don't like Glass Road, and some of his earlier stuff I wasn't the biggest fan of, but I like these like resource management games that they put out, you know. I prefer, well actually, I won't get into spoilers, but Feast for Odin. I mentioned Polyomino's games in various other videos I've done. I personally prefer certain others, but this one uses the mechanic and does it quite well, even if that detracts from the theme a bit. But why I put this on the list and why it makes it is because there's so much options you can do in this game. You have like 30 to 40 different worker placement spaces. Yeah, 40 worker placement spaces you can go to. So many options, you know, do I want this, do I want this, do I want this? And AP players, stay away from this game because, God, you will freeze it up like nobody's business. But every game you play, you'll try something different. You know, am I going to go pillage and raiding this time? Am I going to just build clothes all day? Am I going to try and fill up my intro board with all the tiles, you know, and fill up the whole grid? Am I going to just ignore all of that and just raise animals? You know, there's so many options you can do with this game so that every single game feels very, very different. It's a bit of a beast to teach, I won't lie. And setup and takedown is a little bit of a mission, but I do have an insert for this now, so hopefully that will sort that problem out. But yes, I do get a kick out of games with a ton of variety and resource management, and this one has both of those things in spades. Granted, I wish the theme was a bit stronger because, you know, this whole Tetris style of laying pieces on the grid doesn't really make any thematic sense. But, like I say, that aside, this is a cool one to play, and it even has a solo mode, which is probably the reason why it elevates above number 100 for me, because playing this solo is good fun because you can, you know, try all sorts of different ways of playing it. It is a beast of a box, it is a beast of a game to teach, it is pretty heavy, but with the right group, the right time, Feast for Odin is a solid pick. So that is my number 86. My number 85 has risen one place, literally one single spot. It is as neck and neck as I could get it for this year and last year, which is pretty impressive for a game that's relatively low on my top 100. It was directly behind me, so if you got a good memory, you might have had to guess as what it was, and that is Forbidden Desert. Another staple gateway game that I do like to have in the collection. I admit, Forbidden Island is easier than this one to teach. And I do like Forbidden Island. It is a great game, great value for money, and worth picking up. But it's very simple, very easy. Even on the harder difficulties, it's pretty easy to beat. Because it was designed for new entrants, it was really designed not for gamers. Well, this one is my preferred one, Forbidden Desert. And that's because, again, dirt simple to teach. Really easy to do. But the mechanics are a little bit more, you know, there's a bit more depth to it. It's harder to beat. Definitely. I mean, you put this on elite difficulty or the hardest hard or elite difficulty, and it will smack you around quite a few times. And some of the roles are harder to use than others, like the meteorologist is quite difficult to use well compared to something like the water carrier, who's almost essential in a lot of games. But I like the whole that you've got the grid map, it's different every time. You have to investigate where the pieces are and try and find the components to your ship to fly away. But it takes up to 5 players easily. Doesn't take a lot of time, and is one of those games that I can just lay out and teach as I go along because it's a co-op. Co-ops are easy to teach to new players, and with this one I can literally just set up and say, right, first term, you do this, and talk them through the first round once I've gone over the overview. So easy to teach, easy for new players, but still, gamers can get a kick out of this one as well. I do wish it wasn't in a tin box though, sorry Sam Healy, but yeah. Tins don't really do it for me, you know, not the easiest one to stack on the shelf, but I still enjoy this one. It is my number 85, yes, my number 85, risen one whole place from 86 last year, Forbidden Desert. My number 84 has dropped 28 places from last year. Like I say, just hasn't hit the table as much in recent times, but I'm not going to do the reveal on this one because, well, you can see the blank space where it was a second ago, so to be honest, I think your memories are pretty good enough to know what was there before. Alien Frontiers. There's been a fair few of these like dice placement games with the Euro system. This is still probably, I think, my personal pick of the lot. You know, spoiler alert, Kingsburg didn't make the list this year. And I'm not the big fan of Marco Polo either. I just think the powers are just too completely weird with the balance. And, you know, there's only really two ways you're aiming to win. I don't know, it just didn't really hit it home for me, Marco Polo. This is my personal pick. One of the originals, and I think still the best one. Alien Frontiers has this cool sci-fi retro theme of colonizing a planet out there where you've got these little dome pieces as you lay your, you know, what's the word, colonists on there. The dice mechanics work well. You know, you roll the dice and you use them in various ways as ships to get energy, to get minerals, to build your colonists, to go find alien artifacts and things like that. You can have secret objectives, and it mixes the dice placement with area control in a nice little hybrid manner that I think works really well, because not only are you using the dice to do stuff with the actions, but you're also fighting each other for area control on this planet once you get there. Really cool components, nicely done within about 90 minutes or so, you know, decent length for a game. 4 players can take a little bit long, 2 or 3 is best, but 4 still works okay. And I really like the factions expansion that I've put in this as well. Haven't bothered with the Outer Belt one, the latest one, I don't think that's necessary, but factions definitely has worked well because that gives you a unique board with your own special place that you can go to, and other players can use it as well, but yeah, you have to pay you. And obviously, as everyone's using the faction, then there's all these other spaces that all people can use. It really elevated the game for me, and definitely is worth checking out if you haven't already. I think it's still fairly easy to get hold of because they keep reprinting this on a regular basis, but I still really like it. This is probably the best thing that Games Salut's ever put out in terms of a game. And I still think it beats Kingsburg. I think it still beats, easily beats Marco Polo for me. It's one of the originals, and I think it's still one of the best. Alien Frontiers. My number 83 I am not showing you because the box is up top of that shelf. It's a custom box designed to hold this entire collection. Some of you might remember from my shelf a while back that this, you can't see much of it here, but this shelf used to hold all 4 boxes that I had with this stuff. It had my own sort of foam core insert. It was pretty messy, but I owned everything, and you know, it doesn't hit the table very often. I mean, this is an event game, but I still really enjoy it. I think it is highly thematic and still one of the best Cthulhu games out there. Not the best, spoiler alert, there's others coming, but I think it is still, it holds a good nostalgic place in my heart, and that is the original Arkham Horror. Now, again, I don't have the boxes now. It's in this custom Arkham vault that I got from what was the, I forget the name of the company, I'll have to look it up, but you know, you can see some photos here on the left of the insert itself. It contains everything I have to do with Arkham Horror, and I still really enjoy this game whenever it does occasionally and eventually hit the table. It's a bit more fiddly than other Cthulhu games that have come out, but in terms of theme, it's pitch perfect. You know, you get really good horror atmosphere from the encounters you have in that game. The artwork on the ancient ones is truly disturbing in some cases. I mean, there is some really creepy imagery there. And I feel that compared to a lot of other Cthulhu games that have come since, I think the horror element of Cthulhu is handled much better in this one from, Encounter Cards perspective. There's other Cthulhu games coming, but this one is still a solid game. I wish I could play it more often. It just takes a lot of effort to get it together. You do not want to play it with all the expansions at once, just pick one that's good and go with it. But yeah, it still holds a soft place in my heart. I'm never going to get rid of it. It's a Great game. I just wish I could play it more often, and that's why it's slowly slipping down the list. In fact, I think it's down 28 places again. Will it hit my top 100 next year? I'm not going to place bets. I don't know. It depends if I can get it to the table a bit more, but still think it's a solid Cthulhu game. The original Arkham Horror. My number 82 is an abstract game, and it has climbed a whole 3 places. 3 places since last year. It's remaining steady on my top 100. Again, I like abstract games, and this one is Camisado. Camisado is a stupidly simple abstract game, but my god, this will burn your brain and make you regret every bad decision you make ever. Because in this one, you're on a kind of chess-style board, but the squares are all coloured. And you have these 8 really nice looking towers here. I mean, that is literally the piece you get in the game. They're really cool. And they have coloured symbols on top to match those squares. You basically move a piece, and whatever square you land on is the colour of the opponent's tower they're allowed to move. You can move it forward in any shape or form, forward, straight or diagonal, but it can never move backwards. And the objective is simple. Get one of your towers onto the opponent's starting space. That is it. But the reason this one fits on my list and the reason I enjoy it a lot is because it takes one of those concepts of abstract games that I really like, which is, you gave your opponent the move it took for them to beat you. It's perfect in this one because if you lose, it's your fault. The opponent might have led you into a trap or got, some cool combo going. But at the end of the day, the reason they did that is because you moved the piece that allowed them to move their piece to beat you. You beat you in some respects, however you're going to phrase it. But it really does make you think hard because it's like, right, if I move that one to there, the orange one, that means they can move that, which means they can only move on those 2 colours. And if they do, it means I can move these. You can really plan ahead a lot in this game. And even if you don't do that, it's got good tactical elements as well as opportunities free themselves. Great components. I mean, those towers are great. They've got the felt on the bottom, so they slide nicely on the board. And if you want to use the max rules in this to make the towers a little bit more complex, then you can. But personally, I've barely used those rules. I get a kick out of playing Camisado, just normal Camisado. Although I like playing it on the bigger board sometimes, because I think you've got 2 different size boards you can use. But yeah, I really get a kick. It's a great abstract game, and has stayed steady in my top 100 for 2 years running, and will probably continue to do so. So that is Camisado, my number 82. And finally for this top 10, sorry if the light keeps going in and out, but I'm kind of relying a lot on the sunlight outside to light this video, and of course sunlight's unpredictable. But my number 81 has dropped a fair amount. It's dropped 34 places since last year. Mainly, again, sounding like a broken record, it's hard to get this one to the table. Not just because only so many people want to play it, but also because it's long, it's very complex, it's very heavy. But it is one of the best Civilization games out there, in my opinion. And it is the Fantasy Flight Sid Meier's Civilization the board game. Yes, a long, complex Civilization building game on my list. Really? Is this the same Luke Hector who has, I really like this. It's got a good theme to it. It captures a lot of the essence that I enjoy about the PC games. I don't get any time to play them anymore, but I used to enjoy playing Civilization 4 and 5 quite a lot. Civilization 6 is too expensive. I just don't want to try it at the moment. And plus, I'm hearing some negative reviews of it. But the board game is still solid. I'm struggling to keep it all in the box. It's all trying to burst out. This is one of those games that I think badly could use an insert. So, Broken Token basically wouldn't, wink wink, come on, insert. But yeah, it is a quality Civilization game. I've got both expansions for it. The first one, Fame and Fortune, adds some new cool stuff to do with money and coins and that. And the second one, Wisdom and Warfare, revamps the combat system and improves on it from the base game, which I admit, it's almost like a must-buy expansion because that combat system is a little flawed to begin with, but Wisdom and Warfare improves on it greatly, as well as adding other mechanics and other wonders and other stuff you can do. You will go out and explore, you will go and build your cities, you will build armies, you may even just ignore fighting altogether and build up technologies and build up money, and win by that way. You've got all sorts of different factions with their own special abilities. Granted, one or two are more powerful than others, but people know which ones those are. They just leave them out of the game, or they let the new players play them instead. Balance it out that way. But I still really enjoy it. I don't get to play it as often as I would like, hence it's dropping on the list, but I have a few friends who really enjoy this, so occasionally we can pull out this game and have a blast with it. It's still one of the best Civilization games out there. Sid Meier's Civilization the Board Game by Kevin Wilson definitely deserves its 81 spot on my list. And that's it for this run of 10 games. I hope you're still enjoying the top 100 as they come out. That's 20 games so far. We are getting on with this at a rapid pace, I hope, and we've still got at least another 80 games to talk about in the future. So these get tiring after a while, but I hope you're enjoying them as much as I am recording them. So that's it from me. Remember, at the end of the day, all these 100 games are only games, and I look forward to seeing you on the next batch of 10. See you soon.